So we recently had the Google Live in which Google rolled out the next changes for the next 12 months within the platform. Again, this is going to be slightly different from e-commerce to lead generation. But the focus of today's video is going to be on AI Max migration. They spoke about this is coming out in 2026, September of this year. And I want to explain to you why it's important and what you need to do to implement some strategy changes for your Google Ads to improve the performance and make sure you're staying on top with the amount of changes that are happening within the platform. So again, we need to make sure that we understand how these changes will impact us if we're running Google Ads. So migration, September 2026, what the hell is that all about? What are they talking about? And how's that going to impact me? Why should I need to be paying attention to this? Is probably some of the questions you're thinking. It was one of the things that I was thinking. It was like, more changes coming on. But we need to make sure that we're understanding all the changes that are happening within the platform. So first of all, if you're running dynamic search ads within your Google Ads, as of September of this year, you will not have the opportunity or a way of running dynamic search campaigns, and they were fantastic. I still do run dynamic search campaigns, but as of September this year, we won't have the opportunity to do that. So we need to think of how we can change our strategy. So the strategy of how we can get the very best out of our Google Ads to stay visible, and that's going to be the key theme with Google Ads. So the way that we can do that, if we don't have the dynamic search option, is two ways. First of all, add broad terms to the keywords that you're targeting. So I'm hearing a lot of advertisers, and I hear all the time advertisers talking about don't use broad terms because they're going to show for irrelevant terms. But the way we know that we can control that is by adding negative keywords. But to stay visible, there's only two ways that you can do that now, is by adding in broad terms and or adding in a performance max campaign. And these are going to become more important as we roll into the September, when all the AI Max migration comes into force. So broad terms is a good thing. You should be doing it to make sure you're staying visible with the platform. And number two, you should be adding in performance max campaign. So they're the two ways. If you can combine both, then obviously that's going to give you a better potential strategy to make sure your ads are staying visible. So I've created a bit of a text graphic where we just need to run through that. I've created 3 different variations of that. So the first thing is, obviously, as I mentioned, dynamic search ads are not going to be available from September. So AI Max is likely to become more dominant as we move into 2027 next year. So again, right now, as I'm recording this in June, it's not something that I would use. But again, it's something that I'm keeping an eye on to potentially, as we roll on from September, October, November of this year, I will look to potentially run a small budget on profitable campaigns to see what the impact is, because at the end of the day, we can run small budgets and relatively in effect what's happening with our Google Ad account to see what the performance is like. But my hesitation with this is, as like with Performance Max campaigns when they came out in 2022, when I first tested those, the performance again was a little bit off, a little bit skewy, but that was because it was a new Google campaign that Google was rolling out. And again, I waited we looked at the data points 12, 15 months later before we started to implement that in a lot more campaigns that we were running. And again, I think the same thing is going to be with the AI Max migration. It's going to be more kind of 2027. But again, there's no harm in testing small budgets with campaigns. And again, I'm going to cover that in a second. So as of now, I've put May. I'm actually recording this in June. We don't have enough data points to justify using the campaign or switching over from a search campaign to make it profitable. That's what I'm seeing, and that's something that I don't think you should be doing as advertisers right now. The smarter way, obviously, is test it, run it alongside a campaign. Again, I'm not saying to do it now. I'll be looking to do this towards the end of the year, monitor the data, and then you can then make a better decision. So let's move on to the next slide, where I talk a little bit more about this particular thing. So why we shouldn't rush into AI Max. Again, a lot of advertisers will see that kind of shiny object syndrome and think, look, there's something new, Google, let's put some money in there. Let's test it. Let's get some results and see what it's like. Google, because it's something new, it will take time for Google to refine the data. And again, we've seen this with Performance Max. Performance Max took 12 to 15 months before we started to implement those into a number of campaigns that actually then started to produce some results. And again, you've got to take this all with a pinch of salt and know that you have to understand the data points coming back. So again, Some campaigns it may work, and other campaigns it may not, especially with the early stages. So profitable campaigns come first. I put that as point one. Data is still limited. So again, with Google, Google is all about the data. So if you're getting good data, then you can make a better decision. If you don't have enough data points, it's going to be very difficult, because then what's going to happen? You're going to start guessing, and there's no reason why we should be guessing with Google. We need to get more data, and then from there we can make better decisions. Because whatever we're doing within the Google platform, we have to understand that if we're doing it with database decisions, it's gonna take away a lot of the guesswork, and we shouldn't be guessing in 2026 and moving on to 2027 with Google Ad campaigns. So we need to make sure we're getting more data. Test, do not replace. Towards the end of the year, I may test on small budgets and see what the results are like. I'll only test a little bit of budget, but again, I'm testing, I'm not replacing. Again, I've put that as point three. And point four, make sure that you've got a plan. If you're using dynamic search campaigns, then from there, you need to start thinking of ways that you can replace that. And again, adding in broad and adding in performance max campaigns is something that you can implement to really kind of mitigate the circumstances that are going to happen, which you have no control over in September. So I'm giving you some strategies that really can make a difference. And again, the smarter AI Max strategy. Treat AI Max like we did in 2022 with Performance Max, which I've covered. So Performance Max, again, we were very cautious with it. We tested small budgets, didn't really get a good kind of response. So what we did is we left it, we came back to it, and then we started to see some results. Now, Performance Max is quite a normal way that we can horizontally scale campaigns. If we're sort of running profitable search campaigns, we can add a Performance Max campaign. Quite normal, no issues there. We get lots of data, and we can make better decisions based off of that. So keep your core campaigns live. I've put those points. Do not disrupt profitable search campaigns. Launch a controlled test. Again, I would recommend towards the end of the year, maybe next year, run some small tests on small budgets. Absolutely no problem. And then as we get more data points, Google will obviously work with the campaign, try to optimize it, because they want more people to use it. And like I said, I believe in 2027, this potentially will be a big shift, a big needle mover for Google, in which they'll try to get us to use it more and more. And obviously, if the data points are there, then obviously, why wouldn't we use that to implement into our strategy to make it more profitable ads for what we're trying to do? So monitor the data. Again, you need to be looking at the data points all the time, no matter what campaign you're using within Google. And again, if it works, you can scale it to the moon, which is fantastic. Vertically scaling, which is just adding budget. And then from there, you're going to have more profitability with your Google ads. So right now, as of June, we need to make sure that again, I'm not using these strategies. I'm not testing because I don't believe there's enough data points. It's kind of new with Google. And as we roll in from September, October, November, probably towards the end of the year, I'll make some small tests. And then from there, we can look at 2027. I think that's when really we can start making some more kind of better decisions based off of the data. So if you want me to look at your Google ads, something of interest, I offer a 15-minute consultation where I can jump on, look at ways that I can potentially stabilize your account, look at ways that we could potentially make your ads more profitable, whether that's scaling horizontally or vertically or changing bidding strategies. Again, everything I do is all based off of the data. So we look at the data, and then we're able to make better decisions off of that. So I hope that makes sense. If you want me to jump on and fill out your or look at your Google ads, fill out the form below, and we can book in a time which suits you.